Hello, and welcome back to my channel. This is the third fucking intro I've been filming in the past 20 minutes. I don't know why I've decided to film all three at the same fucking time. Maybe I'm just in the mood for some filming right now, so I'm just doing it. Anyway, this one is because I'm gonna be reading and vlogging about The Secret History by Donna Tartt. All I know about this book is that it is the original Dark Academia book, that it has a crime slash murder slash someone dies, but I'm not sure whether it's a murder, at the very beginning in the prologue, because that's literally all I've read so far is the prologue, and some guy named Bunny has died, but we're in the future, and then we go back in the past, way before he has died, to go from the beginning and know what the fuck happened. And 3, it has to do with students who get involved with a professor who kind of teaches them to go above and beyond the moral boundaries that they have. I don't know, something like that. And then 4, a lot of people have told me the book is great. It was written in the 90s. It's kind of become a classic slash cult slash everyone has been fucking reading it, and I need to read it just for that reason because I am so scared of missing out. That's it. That's the only fucking reason. But also, apparently all the characters are highly dislikable, and that's why a lot of my friends have DNF'd the book. So I'm scared of that happening to me. But also I want to push past that and be like, hey, it gets better at page blah blah, and then they can read it. I don't know if that's going to happen, but if it does, then maybe I'll have encouraged other people to read this book. So we'll see. I keep making up new points. I need to stop because I thought I only had 3, but now I have 4. But I guess number 5 is I'm reading this for another book club, which is for the late night book club, and I'm just excited to participate in it, and I think that's the only reason I will ever be able to pick up this book is because I'm reading it for a book club. I know we're going to talk about it. I know other people are going to be reading it, and there's kind of like a motivation behind me picking up this book because this is not a genre slash summary that would tempt me otherwise. So I don't know how I'm going to feel about the book yet. I'm probably going to hate it. Oh god, I hope not. We'll see what happens. I will take you along with me for the ride of this reading vlog, and you will see whether I enjoy this book or not. So I've reached about 20% of the book so far. I have to say, after reading up until page 114 out of, I think it's 650 or something, 624 pages in this edition, so like 18% Goodreads told me. It is very, very slow paced so far. Basically, the book tells the story of this guy named Richard Papin, and he's from California, and then one day he decides to change his studies because he's studying somewhere where he lives, and he doesn't like what he's doing, he doesn't know what he wants to be doing, and he decides that he wants to go to Hampton, a school there, a university there, after he remembers that he's got this little brochure with pictures of it, and he's fascinated by the fact that it looks super green and lush and countryside-esque and everything, and he's like, yeah, I want to go there. Kind of on a whim. So he decides to go and study there, and when he arrives there, he asks to be put in a class to study Greek because that was one of the things he was really good at, that he picked up when he was studying in California, and he did 2 years of it and he loved it, so he was like, I want to continue doing that. But the teacher there tells him, well, the teacher who takes Greek students is very peculiar and only takes very small amounts of students, like he's got only 5 at the moment and he doesn't want any more. His class is considered full with 5 students only, and he's kind of a very strange man with strange ways of teaching, basically. So he's like, you trust me, you don't want to do Greek, you don't want to study it. Richard decides that he wants to go anyway, so he goes and talks to this teacher, Julian Marrow, maybe? I'm not sure. I don't remember the name of the teacher, Julian something. He goes to talk to him, and the guy's like, oh, sorry, my class is full. It would be lovely. I would love to have more students, but my class is completely full. Richard doesn't think any more of it and just decides to go on with his life until at some point he hears 2 or 3 of the students from that class talking about like some way of translating a word, because they're doing translation from English to Greek or something, and they're discussing one of the terms and basically being like, oh no, it's got to be that one, and the other people are like, no, it's definitely this one, and they're having an argument about it, and he leans in and goes like, oh, have you tried the locative, I think, and they're like, oh, good point, we hadn't tried, great, oh, that works, thanks. So basically he kind of impresses them a little bit, and so one of them is like, oh, you should talk to Julian because you should definitely be studying Greek. And he's like, oh, he said it was, you know, full. And then he still goes back, and this time the teacher is like, welcomes him in and says, yeah, asks him a bunch of questions, has a real long chat with him. And at the end of the day, he's like, would you want to study in my class? But if you do, you have to only study with me. And I guess that's where everything starts from. It's kind of a long-winded summary, but it is kind of what happens at the beginning of the story. And anyway, so Richard is now part of the Greeks, and he slowly becomes friends with the other kids there, and they're all very peculiar people and very dislikable at first. So you have the twins, Charles and Camilla, and then you have a guy named Francis and a guy named Henry and another one named Bunny, which is apparently a nickname. They all, you know, start slowly inviting Richard into their own stuff, and he at first is wary of them and feels like they're kind of, you know, they're a little private club and they don't really want to be friends with him, but slowly he realizes they're just waiting for him to be ready, and they become close friends and they hang out at one of the houses. Like Francis' aunt or something has a house somewhere in the countryside, like an hour away from where they're studying, and they go there every weekend and basically spend a lot of time there and just love being in the countryside, and it's so peaceful and nice, and they're just going on a little lake with a little boat and just playing card games and drinking loads of champagne all the time, and that's very much their life so far. This is the only things that have happened so far in 100 pages. That and a little bit of foreshadowing of something else terrible that's gonna happen. We know from the prologue that Bunny dies at some point, because that's like in the very first pages. Don't know why or how exactly, but have a feeling it's not of natural causes. And we then have like a couple of comments from Richard as it goes on, that he's like, I hadn't realized why they were doing this or why they were doing that, and he kind of hints at the fact that the other Greeks, the ones who have always been this group of friends who were friends before they met him, are all hiding something from him and have been gathering in secret, just, you know, between them without him, and that he kind of notices it but doesn't know for sure and doesn't know why, and that's kind of it. So that's all that's happened in the first 2 chapters. Yes, because every freaking chapter is about 50 pages long. This is a big book. I feel like there's so many moments where I was like, I'm gonna drop it. I can't continue reading this. It's just too fucking boring. It's really, really slow paced. It's written in such a way that is super pedantic and uses lots of strange descriptions that are so muddled that I just don't understand what happens sometimes. It's just a bit like, the way things are being described, it makes you feel like, oh, now I'm lost. What were you describing again? I don't even know anymore. So I'm not sure I'm loving it, but past page, because I've marked it, around like pages 85 until like 114, which is the one I stopped at, it starts getting a bit more interesting. And I think it's because originally the characters in the book, including the main character and his point of view that we're following, because it's first person, are so dislikable. But as it goes on, it becomes slightly more interesting. I think, one, because he becomes closer friends with them around that page and onwards, and it kind of becomes a little bit more interesting when you discover that they're not as bad as you might have thought at first. One of them is, definitely, because he's huge homophobic, but the other ones kind of make more efforts with him, with Richard, and then you discover a little bit more about them. It just becomes kind of fun to read, a little bit fun. Still very slow. As we go on, it becomes more interesting because of that, but also because of the foreshadowing, which is intriguing me. I'm like, what's going on? Why are they meeting up together? How is Bunny gonna die? Are they killing him? Like, you can't help but wonder these things and have no idea what's gonna happen because I have never read this book before and I haven't read any spoilers either. So I am intrigued, and I guess that's gonna be enough to keep me going for a little while. So I will keep you guys updated once I've read a little bit more, but hopefully it won't be as painful as the first 100 pages and I will enjoy myself. Hello lovely people, it is now Saturday and I have made some progress in The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Incredibly so, because I just didn't think that I would get to this point where I'm actually really invested in the story. It took me a good 100 pages to think, yeah, you know what, I'm curious and I want to read a little bit more. And 200 pages in total to think, yeah, it's becoming more of a page turner for me and I want to like continue reading on regardless of chapters, which is crazy. And I mean, it's not that crazy. Basically now I'm really liking it somehow. I don't know if liking it is the right word because I'm still extremely uncomfortable with some of the stuff that the main character says and the other characters say, and just in general everyone is still pretty much dislikable and unlikable, but I do want to know what happens next, and yeah, it's got my attention. So I'm currently page 330 in The Secret History out of 625. What does that leave me with? 300 pages left? Yeah, I'm past the middle point. I still have 300 pages left. Woohoo! Yeah, so I've been way more invested in the story mainly, not so much the characters. It's kind of a strange thing because I want to know more, and the reason we're knowing more is thanks to the main character who's telling us the story. It's a first person point of view book, so I'm fine with that. But he still thinks and says sometimes stuff that I'm like, wow, I still hate you. If you died also, I wouldn't mind so much. But anyway, it's separated in 2 books. Now that I've reached book 2, I know that, before I didn't. And basically what you have in the very beginning, which is the prologue, where clearly Bunny, one of the characters, has died. Although it's not said clearly, word for word, it's pretty damn clear that the main character and his friends are the cause of that death. Whether accidental, due to something that happened within a plan that they had, or the plan was to kill Bunny. Not clear because it's just very vague and it's just a couple of pages. But at the end of book 1 is when you reach that point in time again. So you finally know exactly what led to that point, what happened, everything in between. It's too much information. I don't need to know that much about how they came to that point. I feel like I understand why it was done this way and why people like this book. It's because it's such a slow build that you feel yourself, you know, it's as if someone is telling you a story and at first you're a little bit bored, you're, you know, listening half of the time, not paying attention the other half of the time, and then as they build up and build up and build up, you find yourself leaning forward more and more until you're on the edge of your fucking seat. And that's how this feels to me. But if I wasn't reading this for a book club, I would not have passed that point. I wouldn't be on the edge of my seat because 200 fucking pages to get to the point where you're finally invested in the story, that's way too fucking much, girl. Like, no, ain't nobody got time for that. So yeah, that's how I feel so far about the book, and I have a feeling that regardless of how brilliant it might be at the end, how amazed I might be towards, you know, the last pages, how much I may love the book when I'm done with it and I put it down, I'm still gonna remember those 200 painful fucking pages. Because it matters. It's not just the ending or, you know, the middle or whatever of your book that matters. It's also the beginning. It's the journey to get there. And the journey was boring as fuck. I just feel like Donna Tartt took some lessons from Balzac and forgot that the reason he wrote so fucking much in his descriptions is because he was paid by the word. Are you paid by the word? I don't think so. So, yeah. But whenever it's not descriptive, whenever you don't have long-ass descriptions that either make no sense or are super flowery and super boring, and really just, I skip most of them, so I'm just saying, they're not necessary because I'm still invested in the story. I still like what I'm reading right now and I still think it's beautifully written, and yet I skip half of the fucking descriptions. So she could have cut them, is what I'm saying. And the book would still be good, I'm sure. Anyway, when I'm not reading the descriptions and I skip straight to the dialogues and stuff, it actually is really, really good. And I do think that the characters are very well written, and she really conveys what kind of people they are through their dialogues and how they speak and what they say and their actions and stuff. So I do think it's very well written, it's very interesting, and I do want to know more. And although I still dislike most of them, I'm a little bit invested in knowing more in what's going to happen in all those characters. Count the number of times I've said the word invested in this video. Anyway, I think everything that's going to happen from now on in book 2, just a guess because I've not read that much of book 2 yet, and I haven't read any spoilers, I think it's probably going to be like a slow descent. Like, it's gonna be like a devolution moment, because everything led to the point of Bunny's death, and now that Bunny is dead, what happens to everyone else? And I just feel like it's gonna go downhill from there. Not in terms of the writing, I think it's still gonna be really interesting to read from now on, but just in terms of what happens to the characters. We'll see, I might be completely wrong. I will let you guys know how I feel about it later. Hi, please ignore my hair, it's fucking gross, I need to wash it. But I was busy finishing a book, The Secret History by Donna Tartt. So yeah, I finally finished this freaking brick of 625 pages. Wow. I put it down, I finished it, I really wanted to get to the end, I wanted to... There's half of me that just really wanted to get it done with and be like, yeah, that's it, I'm finished, I can read other things now. And it's such a long ass book that I was like, I gotta put some time into it and just, you know, freaking finish it. And then there's another part of me that was like, well, I am generally interested in knowing what happens, because it is, as I predicted, a slow descent into hell and madness and insanity for all of the characters. I'm exaggerating perhaps, but like everyone is kind of slowly devolving, and in the second part of the book, I mean. So yeah, it's pretty much what I expected, and I wanted to read on and know how it was gonna happen, and I had a feeling maybe someone else was gonna die, and yeah, I just wanted to see whether I was right about any of these things. So I was definitely, like I said before, very invested. I was invested in the book. I wanted to know more about the story, what was going to happen to the characters after Bunny's death, and, you know, whether they were going to get caught or not, whether they were going to get close, if they were going to turn against each other, all of that. I wanted to know all of that, and I was very, very into this read towards the end. So, for all of that, I can say it's a good book. It took 200 pages for me to get into it, but past these 200 pages, yeah, I genuinely enjoyed it. But when I closed it and I shut it down and I was like, that's it, I'm done, 625 pages, fucking done. My very first thought was, how is this some people's favourite book? I know that sounds super rude, and I'm sure some people are going to be so offended if it is indeed their favourite book, but I just don't get it. I think just maybe it's not the genre for me. It's the writing that is like as pedantic as the main characters, and knowing all of their thoughts. Basically, what I can tell you, and what I will agree with, I'm sure, with those people who say it's their favourite book, is that it is brilliantly written, because I hated the main character when I think I was meant to hate him, and I really felt like he was real and existed, and just this was his memoir and his memory of, you know, the story of how him and his friends killed this poor guy Bunny, and what happened before and what happened after. It made me feel like I was genuinely there reading it, you know, from this guy's point of view, and that this guy was a real person. So brilliantly written. I don't know why this book has made me feel extremely moody, extremely annoyed with everything. My hair looks like crap. I'm annoyed at everything right now, and nothing bad's happened today. There's no reason why I should feel annoyed, except I've just finished this book. So the fact that I feel in such a bad mood because of a book tells you that A, it's very well written because it's eliciting some serious emotions from me apparently, and B, I didn't like it that much apparently because I want to feel happy and hopeful and, you know, elated or whatever after finishing a book, not moody as fuck. I don't know why I'm so angry at it. I guess I'm angry that it's that long. I feel like if that story had been told in a reasonable amount of pages, hey, I would have given it, you know, a lot more credit. I would have given it a lot more credit had it been written in 400 pages. And yeah, I think I would have been able to say, interesting, maybe not my type of book, maybe not my genre, but yeah, good. And here, I can't just say it was good. I feel like I have to add, every single time I say it was a good book and I enjoyed it, I have to also add, but the first 200 pages sucked and it made me feel like shit afterwards, and I just don't know how I feel about having spent that much time reading it. It's just, that's how I feel about the book, and I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't think it is. I don't even know how much I want to rate it. I feel like a lot of the books that I rate around 3 stars, 3.5, all of that, it's because they've elicited nothing from me except a, yeah, that was okay, like a meh. It feels like a meh type of thing at the end of the book. I kind of felt like that at the end of Catherine House because it felt to me like it had so much potential and just didn't reach that potential for what I enjoy myself personally. I know a lot of people did enjoy it and rated it 5 stars, and a lot of people hated it and rated it much lower, but I just felt like kind of, yeah, it was average for me, for my personal taste. This book, however, is giving me so many feelings of annoyance and anger and still enjoyment and all of those at once that I'm like, it doesn't deserve a 5 star because for me personally, and every rating system is obviously subjective, I didn't think it was a 5 star read. I didn't enjoy it that much. I would never say that this book for me was 5 stars, for sure. But also, I feel like giving it a 3 is saying it didn't elicit any specific feelings for me, that I didn't absolutely hate it or absolutely adore it, and it's everything in between, which it's not. It's all of those. It's I hated it and adored it at the same time. Is that strange? I feel like it's strange. It's probably one of the first time I've ever felt like this about a book. Maybe because normally if a book starts like that for me and has, you know, such a bad start for 200 whole pages, I give up on it. I DNF it. I wouldn't normally continue reading that. But as I was mainly trying to really get through it for this book club, and also because in my mind I was like, everyone's been talking about it, it's a classic, it's from the 90s, it's the first dark academia book, all of that shit, I was like, well, I gotta read through it. I want to know, you know, what everyone is talking about. There's a part of me that has a huge FOMO feeling about certain books, and I'm like, this will settle that. And now I'm like, was that worth it? Like, I could just have been reading more thrillers, and it's October. I have so many books on my list that won't fit on my TBR that I really would have loved to be reading through October. So I think it's going to take me a little while to process it. I'm sure it's a book that's going to stay with me, and just for that reason, I think it probably deserves a 4 star. But also, there were so many things I hated about it that I want to give it 2. So yeah, there we are. Probably a 3 star because that's between 2 and 4, although I want to give both those ratings to this book. I feel exhausted. Do you feel exhausted watching me ranting about this? Maybe. Most of my videos are not like this, so please do leave a like. Do stick around and maybe subscribe and maybe click the bell and all that shit, and I would really appreciate it. So I will see you guys next time.